talking about the fully funded education, as you know, there's currently a proposition right now, Initiative 42, which is the constitutional movement to fully fund the MAEP.
Yes.
Now, what is your stance on that proposition?
I unequivocally support it. The 42 initiative signed by 200,000 or over 200,000 moms and dads, regardless of whether they're Republicans or Democrat, that put education first. I support it, and at the same time, it's embarrassing to me that we would have to do that as a citizenry in order to get our legislature to respect and follow the law. It's a shame that they need a constitutional amendment to make them follow their law. There's an alternative that's been put up by them, which I completely disagree with. I think it's an affront to all of us who support it.
Right. Now, so the biggest difference between the 42 and the 42 alternative, the 42A, is that with the 42, it would actually give power to the Chancery Court in Hinds County, correct? While the 42A would give it to the legislature, keep it in the legislature.
Well, without defining whether it's the Chancery, yes, it would give judicial oversight. But the reality is the law is already set up that anytime there's a question of the law in the legislature, it does get reviewed by the court system, period. That's the way things work. It's a checks and balances. However, if you look at it a different way, and this is the way, what the legislature is saying is we don't want any oversight. That's what 42A is, says do not allow a judge to tell us what to do. So if we have a law that is constitutional, it exists right now, it has existed since 1997, then my question is a little bit differently. All right, Mr. or Mrs. Legislator, if you don't want to follow the law on the books, and you don't want a judge to tell you that you have to follow the law, then who do you choose to tell you to follow the law? We as people have a right to expect that our legislators, who are sworn to represent us, will follow the law. So if you disagree with it, then you either need to change that law or you need to be ordered to comply with it.
So what do you say to the people who talk about the 42 and say it gives, power of the purse to the judiciary where it shouldn't belong? The power of the purse should belong to the legislative, people who elect.
Well, once again, we come back to this. I say to those people crystal clear, there is a law. The law is clear to fund based on a mathematical formula that the legislature came up with. And if you're not going to follow that law, we need someone to make you follow the law. So, when you say it goes to the judiciary, it only goes to the judiciary if the legislature fails to fully fund it. As long as they're funding it, then there's no reason to ever go to the judiciary. Matthew, I would also say this to them. What they are lacking right now is the intestinal fortitude to say, we're going to throw that law out. Because they clearly disagree with it because they refuse to fund it, but they don't have the gumption to just go ahead and vote the law down. Because they are worried from an electability standpoint, what would it look like if I voted down the law that says fully fund education? So they take the easier path and simply refuse to fund it, which is a violation of the law.
Now, what about if we have this? A lot of people say it's going to kind of pigeonhole the legislature into always giving this certain amount of money to education. So we have no rainy day fund, for instance, if a disaster would come, and we have to give this so much and we can't use it for anything else. What would you say to that?
Well, that's actually the easiest one. No, it's an allocation problem we have. And I mean, this is a complex scenario to try to describe, but
right.
The amount that you budget every year, that the legislatures get to divide up, is an estimate. It is a projection. And for the last several years, what we have done is we have underestimated what the income will be. Mm-hmm. And then we're relegated to dividing it up. And then any money that comes in over that is considered one-time money. And that goes into a rainy day fund, which now has over $600 million in it, which is the exact amount that they have cut each year, underfunded it. What I say to do with it is, let's not worry about arguing over whether or not we are fully funding the education. Let's talk about the improper, not the improper funding, but just wrong, about the tax rebates, incentives that we are giving to places like the Renaissance Colony Parkway getting a $29 million rebate. Do you have? And that was part of $155 million that had been given to a strip mall in Pearl. Can you imagine what $155 million would have done to educate our children and provide them with the necessary tools to become educated and a contributing part of our society?
Okay, continuing on the education. Are you familiar with the Schuette opinion that was laid down 2013 by the Supreme Court? That's where the Michigan law, the people in Michigan voted in a constitutional amendment to put out preference based on race or sex.
Yes, very familiar with that.
Are you in favor of something like that for Mississippi?
That opinion, I believe, was over 40 pages long, and it'd be hard to say which.
But the basic law that Michigan passed, saying we're no longer giving preference based on someone's race or sex. Everybody's equal when it comes to our admissions policies. Just because you're a certain color, we're not giving you a preference based on that color, or just because you're a certain sex, you don't get a preference on.
If you narrow it to that, then yes, I don't have a problem with that. I agree with that. I think that there are many of my friends and colleagues of which I'm aware that don't want to take advantage of a preference. They want it to be treated equally based upon who they are as an individual.
Right.
We still need to ensure ourselves that we don't regress back to a de facto segregation or where they're not. So I think it would have to be something monitored to ensure that we weren't slipping back.
Well, to me, I've always thought it'd be better to come with a more holistic approach. For instance, saying we look at things like economic status. If someone comes from a poor background, I think they should get more points or whatever awarded to them in their whole application process. So things like that, something I think we can learn from, especially how they did it up in Michigan. As you know, Michigan's had a lot of litigation over their affirmative action policies.
Significant amount, and Texas as well.
Right. So, I think that's one of the barriers. I think, especially things like higher education should be applicable to all. And I think that's one of the laws where I think Mississippi would be good heading towards.
Well, I think that what it would do is there's a certain element. You'll never eradicate racism or prejudicial views completely. So that we have to do what we can to try to enhance and increase the potential of people getting along and working along together better, both in an educational system and in the outside world, so to speak. What I believe about that is that there's a certain amount of resentment when there is this automatic criteria that they meet and they get a bump ahead.
Absolutely.
That if that weren't there, it may open more doors for a more genuine relationship